It's Mo. It is December, and in December I'm trying to finish all my 2022 book haul revisits by the end of the year. So, in 2022, it was the first year that I made my RAB spreadsheet, my recently acquired books spreadsheet, because I had been on BookTube for a little while and I wanted to find out how many books I was bringing in to the house, how many books I had on my shelves, how many books were coming in every day, every week, every month. So, not only did I create that spreadsheet where I listed the books that I acquired, when I acquired them, how I acquired them, where they were from, if they cost money, if they went on collections, if they went to the basement, if I read them, and all that other good information. I also made monthly book hauls. So I thought it was a good idea to look back at those monthly book hauls and see how many books I have read in the 2 years since making those book hauls. So we're looking at October 2022. I think this is going to be a big one. It's about 20 minutes long, and it says that I went to the Far Hills rummage sale, which is one of my favorite rummage sales where I get a lot of books, and also the Allentown Library sale rooms, which I do also love. These rooms are only open certain times, but they have a lot of great books. I would love to go back there, actually. Except I'm doing a Read What You Own challenge right now, so I can't get any books, but maybe that'll be a spot that I go to, especially after I finish my Read What You Own challenge. While I'm looking back at my 2022 book hauls, I'm also making a priority read list. So I'm seeing how many books that I've read, how many books that are unread, spoiler alert, a lot more unread than read, how many books I've unhauled or DNF'd, books that I've put in the basement, books that I've put on my read shelf as a collection or that I've already read. And then I'm also making a priority read list. So some of the books that I haven't read are going on a list that I think I should read. So let's look back at October 2022. No little free library content in the beginning of this one. Okay, so right off the bat, it says that I did order some books, and this is something I talked about in the last video. I don't really order books online anymore. I used to order used books online from used book sellers. I don't really need to do that anymore. One of the things that I discovered doing my RAB spreadsheet is that I collect so many books that there's really no reason. If I want a book, it'll eventually show up. I'll find it at a little free library. I'll find it at a used book sale. I'll find it at a Goodwill, you know, in a random place. I don't need to like order books online. Every once in a while, I will order a book online if I like absolutely need to have it. I think I ordered one book in 2023. I don't think I've ordered any books in 2024. It's very, very, very rare, but in this early part of BookTube, I was still ordering some books, which, why? So I'm starting with a bunch of cat cozy mysteries, the first of which I have not read. That is Catwalk. I don't know that this is a book that's strictly a cat cozy mystery. It has a cat on the cover, it has cat in the title, but this might be one of the ones that's like deceivingly not a cat cozy mystery. The next book is definitely a cat cozy mystery. It is the second in Lillian Jackson Braun's The Cat Who series. These are all rereads for me. I've probably read like 15 of the cat cozy books. The Cat Who Ate Danish Modern is the second in the series. My first cat cozy mystery video, which if you don't know, I do a series of vlogs where I read cat cozy mysteries, although I haven't had one of those come out in a very long time for reasons. But the Cat Who Ate Danish Modern is the second in the series. I've already reread the first in the series, but I'm glad to have this second one in the series as well. But it is unread as of now. Technically, I've already read it, but not this version and not in this time. The next book is interesting because it is The Cosmic Clues by Manjari Prabhu, and if you watched my DNF video, which I recently did, you will know that I have DNF'd this one. So this one is a DNF. I still have it, so it might just be a DNF for now, but we're definitely going to count it as DNF. Another unread book is The Cat, the Quilt, and the Corpse by Leanne Sweeney, cat cozy mystery. So the next book, Curiosity Thrilled the Cat by Sophie Kelly, I have read. This is in one of my cat cozy mystery vlogs, so I will leave that listed down below. And I really enjoyed this one, actually. It was in a streak of ones that I didn't really love. According to this video, I did buy that on Thrift Book, but I've found some other in the series in my travels, so that is one that in that series I will probably continue. I did enjoy it, and then I know that I've seen some of them on audio as well. well, so I might read some of them on audio. The next book is Unread. It is The Lady Takes the Case by Eliza Carey, I think the name is. And this is another one of those that has a cat on it and supposedly has a cat in the story, but I don't know how much of an actual cat cozy mystery it is. Another book that I've read, another cat cozy mystery, another book that I got online apparently, is Mimi Lee Gets a Clue by Jennifer J. Chow. I actually read that earlier this year. It's here on my read shelf. I read it in like January or February of this year, and it was really bad. It was really bad. And it's part of the reason that I haven't put out another cat cozy mystery vlog, because I did vlog reading this, but I've just had like a really bad luck since reading this one with my cat cozy mysteries. The Manjari Prabhu book is in the cat cozy mystery vlog that I started as well, but I DNF'd that one, so I don't know. Maybe that's something that needs to get worked on in the new year. Wow. Okay, so we have another DNF, another cat cozy mystery. This is the #2 Feline Detective Agency by Mandy Morton. This is also still on my shelf, even though I DNF'd it last year, because I don't think I can get rid of the cat cozies that I've DNF'd in case I need them for videos, or also in case I do want to go back to them for some reason. This one I didn't like because it was like a cat world. Like, it was a cat detective, but it was set in like a cat world. So I don't think I'll be going back to this one, but you just never know. Okay, finally, we are getting away from cat cozy mysteries. The next book is The Frightened Wife by Mary Robert Reinhardt. I love Mary Robert Reinhardt, but this book is unread. She is a golden age mystery writer, a queen of crime, but she is unique for being a American and writing all about America in her cozy mysteries, in her crime books. I love her work, and I buy them whenever I can, pick them up whenever I can, wherever I see Mary Robert Reinhardt. I get them. I just read one earlier this month, and I kind of like eke them out because I love them so much. The next book is unread. It is A Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway. This is his nonfiction work. This is the work that I'm the most interested in reading, and I often think about picking this one up, but I have not yet. The next book goes on collections. It is Kurt Vonnegut's Player Piano. So I think this was his first novel, and this is one that I haven't read yet. I have read quite a bit of Kurt Vonnegut, but I pick up any and all Kurt Vonnegut books that I see, especially if they have vintage covers or interesting covers. So this one just goes on collections. Will I read it eventually? Yes, but is it on the TBR? No. The next book is our first basement book. It is Young Mrs. Cavendish and the Kaiser's Men by K.K. Beck. So this one is a cozy mystery, I believe. I think it was written in the 80s, but I think it takes place earlier. I don't really know very much about it. It just seemed like an interesting mystery. I'm sure I got it at a rummage sale or something. I'm still interested in reading it, but it's not currently on the TBR. It is definitely currently in the basement. The next book is read. It is Willa Cather's My Mortal Enemy, and I loved this book. It's about a young woman who travels to New York, and it's all about kind of her relationship with her family and relationships in general, and it's very short and it's very good, and I would highly suggest picking it up if you're a fan of like turn of the century American women writers, similar to Edith Wharton and people like that. The next book is unread. It is O Britannia by Daphne du Maurier. I've only read one Daphne du Maurier, which is Rebecca, the most well-known one, but I pick up her work from time to time because I definitely want to read more of her work. Oh no, not O Britannia, Rule Britannia. I know that Daphne du Maurier does like more thrilling suspense romance and then more standard romance. So I think this is one of the more standard romances. The next book is read. Okay, so we're like definitely more unread than read, but we're not doing too bad. It is The Unpleasantness at the Bologna Club, which is one of the Lord Peter Wimsey books by Dorothy L. Sayers. Dorothy L. Sayers is a British mystery writer, a queen of crime, and Lord Peter Wimsey is her most famous detective. So I really like Dorothy L. Sayers. A lot of people don't, but I do, and I have quite a few Lord Peter Wimsey books that I read when I feel like reading a Lord Peter Wimsey book. So this one is one that I have read. The next book is The Sandcastle Mysteries, which is a independently published book by Amia Lake, and the byline is Death and Deception at the Jersey Shore. This is a book that I have not read. I think it's still on my TBR. I'm going to call it, yes, still on my TBR. I like to pick up any books that are like independently published books about New Jersey when I can. Sometimes they're really good. Sometimes they end up being like a little gem, but I haven't read this one yet to find out. Another Mary Roberts Reinhardt, but another one that I haven't read is The Episode of the Wandering Knife. This, I think, has a collection of short stories in it, and I know that one of them is in the Miss Pinkerton series, so I am excited to get this. I think I actually recently got another copy of this too. Mary Roberts Reinhardt is definitely one of those mystery authors that I pick up all of their work in various covers. I love all the different cover ways, so whenever I see them, I try to pick them up. So here's a book that I'm going to say is on collections. It is Man Kizzen Wars #2. I probably will never read this. It's really more for my husband, but this was inspired by the Larry Niven Ringworld books. I love Ringworld. That book is amazing, but I don't know if I'd ever read any more in the series, but my husband has read like all of them. So when I see a book that was written by Larry Niven or is related to Larry Niven's book, I definitely try to pick them up. Another read book is Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass by Frederick Douglass. This is a nonfiction slave narrative explaining Douglass's life and how he escaped from slavery and how he is self-educated, and it's amazing. This is a book that I never read in schools, but I have read obviously since getting it in 2022, and I absolutely loved it. It's an absolutely incredible story, and I think it should be taught in schools and that everyone in the US and other places should read this book. Another self-published book, or very indie published book, as I say in the video, is Oh Gee It's Christmas, which is a Ocean Grove mystery. Ocean Grove is the town just south of mine, and this is by Heath P. Boyce, and I have read this one actually. It was pretty bad, but I love books that are set places that I've been or that I live near or that I've lived in, and this was no different. I loved the take on Ocean Grove. It was fairly forgettable. I guess thinking about it now, I can kind of remember the plot, but it's about Ocean Grove and a mystery and a church, and it was fine. I've unhauled this one, but I have read it. The next book is unread. It is an NYRB book, so it could technically go on collections, but I will call it TBR. I will just call it unread. I do collect NYRB books whenever I see them because they are kind of forgotten modern classics for the most part, and they're always amazing. This is the Levant trilogy, Fortunes of Man, and I can't see who the author is. And this is a really long one, and it's a trilogy of like 3 books in this book, but then there's 3 big books with 3 little books collected in them, I think. And I have not read it. It is not one that I plan on getting to anytime soon, but we're still going to call it unread and on the TBR. The next book is unread. It is Apple of My Eye by Helene Hanff. This is one that I did buy used online, and Helene Hanff actually is a person that I would buy her work online because it's kind of hard to find. I love Helene Hanff. I read 82 Charing Cross Road, which is amazing, a few years ago, and I've read 2 other of her books, including The Duchess of Something Street, which is kind of a sequel to 84 Charing Cross Road. Did I say 82? 84 Charing Cross Road. I love her work. I definitely try to read one once a year, but I think for the last 2 years I haven't read one. Helene Hanff writes nonfiction books for the most part. I think she does have like a fiction, but they're mostly about her life in New York, and they're all really amazing. The next book is definitely down in the basement. It is a collection of short stories by various sci-fi authors. These are hard to pass up because there's so many classic sci-fi authors that I love and that I want to read all of their work. So when I see them, I definitely pick them up, especially because they're mostly like vintage editions, mass market paperbacks, but they're never like high priority, and like it's very rare that I'll get to one of them, so we're definitely calling this basement. The next book is unread, but it's also in the basement. It is Winter's Tales by Isak Dinesen. I really love Isak Denesen's work. I've read Out of Africa, and I've read some of her other work and some of her short stories, I think. So I pick up her work whenever I see it. She doesn't have very much, mostly short stories, and then obviously Out of Africa is the big one. I pick her work up when I see it, but this is definitely not a priority. I mean, short stories are like tough anyway. I love short stories, but I'm probably going to pick more modern short stories than modern classic short stories or than classic short stories any day of the week. So we'll definitely call this not on the TBR. The next book is Red. It is one of the Miss Marple stories, and it is What Miss McGillicuddy Saw, which is also called 450 to Paddington. So I read this either earlier this year or last year. I'm working my way through all the Miss Marple books in order before I start with anything else. Well, that's not true. I'm also reading the Tommy and Tuppence books in order, but I read those a lot more rarely. So Miss Marple is definitely one of my favorite Golden Age mystery detectives, and Agatha Christie is one of my favorite writers. Love that series, love that author. So I pick up any and all works, especially if they are vintage mass market paperbacks or if they have interesting covers. But I have also read this one. The next book is unread. It is still on my mystery TBR. It is The Mango Opera by Tom Cochrane. This is similar to last video. This is a book that I bought used online from a series that I've read one before. So somewhere in my travels, I read one of this series. I picked it up probably at like the Wall Library sale or some library sale, read it, liked it. And at this point in my booktube career, I was like wanting more books like that. So I was picking a couple up. Have I read the sequels to those series that I bought? No, I haven't. The next book is Red, and it is Florida by Lauren Groff. I actually got this in my TBR spin last year, but I didn't read it for whatever reason. But then I did go back and read it, and I think there is a vlog of this because it was like an extra TBR spin vlog. So Lauren Groff is an American writer who writes various things, but she lived for a long time in Florida, and this collection of short stories all revolves around Florida and people in Florida or the idea of Florida, and I really, really liked it. Some of the short stories were really great and stand out in my mind. Some of them I don't remember at all, but overall, I really enjoyed this collection. Another Red book, okay, we might turn this around, is The Pale Gold of Alaska by an Irish author who I absolutely cannot pronounce their name. I read this collection of short stories, which all revolves around people with Irish heritage a couple of years ago, and I really like this one. This is one that I think about a lot too. Again, not every story, but several stories in this collection has stuck with me, and I never see anyone reading this. So I would definitely, if you're interested in Irish literature, especially if you're interested in short stories, I would definitely pick this one up. It also has a lot to do with like the immigrant experience. It has a lot of historical fiction stories. So yeah, this one was really great. Ooh. The next book is also Red, and I also really, really enjoyed this one. This is Minotaur by Benjamin Tumas. This is a translated work, translated from Hebrew, I believe. I don't know who the translator was, but this was about a secret agent who is kind of at the end of his life in the industry and his obsession with a woman. And then the book is told in 3 different parts, if I'm remembering correctly, and each part is like a different perspective. So it's the same story but told in different perspectives, but you get a lot of different information in each story, so they don't feel like just looking at the same story from a different angle. You really get a lot more revolving around this secret agent and around this relationship with this woman, and I really like this book. So happy to have read it. Back to unread books with The Sorrow of War. This is another translated work. Again, I don't know the translator, but this is a book about North Korea. So this is one that I still would definitely really like to read. I believe it is a fictional book. I don't know if it was specifically written by a North Korean, but I am definitely interested in reading this. The author is Bao Nin. I just feel like this one's going to be really heavy, so it might be hard to read. Another unread book is Souciant by David Charandi. This is one that's like really slim, and I've always wanted to pick up. I do not think this one is translated, but I am still interested in this. Unfortunately, it is unread and on my TBR. Another Queen of Crime, another Golden Age mystery writer is Niall Marsh, and the next book is Enter a Murderer, which is one of the books that I have not read by her. I've read a couple of her works. She's not my favorite Golden Age mystery writer, but I do keep picking up her work because I do think that her work is interesting in the conversation of Golden Age mysteries. So this one I have not read. I think this is the first in the series of her main detective, whose name currently escapes me. Detective Roderick. Roderick something or something Roderick. All right, we're getting into some poetry, and the first of which is The Goblin Market by Christina Rossetti. I did read that. I actually read that earlier this year, partly because I also read the Wayward Children series, and they reference The Goblin Market. The Goblin Market is, I guess, a very famous fantasy poem, but the majority of Rossetti's work is very religious. I found it extremely interesting to read her work in general. The next book is Unread. It is the story of a long-distance marriage by Sidhesh Indamhar, and this one is, I believe, the story of two people who are married but live in different places. This is one that I always want to read. This one is not translated as far as I know, but I just never pick it up. I should probably pick it up. Let's put the story of a long-distance marriage on my priority read list. Interesting. I mentioned that this is about a person living in New York and a person living in Tokyo, and that's the long distance part of the relationship. And that reminds me a lot of Memorial by Brian Washington. So I'm glad I put this on my priority read list because I think this one would be an interesting one to read and then kind of see the juxtaposition of those two stories. Ooh, the next book is read. It is Ghost Eaters by Clay McLeod Chapman. I just read that book this month. So this is a horror novel about a young woman whose best friend, kind of the leader of her pack of people, passes away, and the extreme measures that she's willing to take to possibly, potentially see him again. This was okay. I didn't love it, but if you want to hear more, definitely look for my December wrap-up. Another book of poetry that I have read is from the Vietnamese. This is a collection of ancient to modern at the time, which was the 70s, poetry from Vietnam, all collected and translated by one editor. I don't remember the editor's name, but this was a great collection. Really interesting to see a huge range of time from ancient times to current day in the 1970s and the different kinds of poetry from one particular country, Vietnam. But the best thing about this was that it was published basically in the middle of the Vietnam War, and the intro, it talks about how Vietnam was completely like villainized and othered and made, the Vietnamese people were made to seem like heathens, like having no culture. So the editor of this book was like, no, obviously they have culture, and not only do they have culture, they have an ancient culture that has been around for many, many years, and they also are writing poetry today. So it was a fantastic collection and a fantastic intro, so I'm really glad to have read this one as well. Burton Raffle is the editor's name. The next book is Unread. It is also poetry. It is Going Out with Peacocks by Ursula K. Le Guin. I have not read this one yet. I'm still super interested in it. I know that Pensively Reading really recommends this one, so I would love to get to this one at some point. The next book is read. It is a young adult or even middle grade book called Seed Folks by Paul Fleischman, and this is a very simple book all revolving around a empty lot in the city. So it starts out as an empty lot, but then one person plants some seeds there and some other people from the community plant seeds there, and it becomes a community garden. And it's told in little stories from all the different people in the neighborhood whose lives become connected through this empty lot. And it was really great. I really enjoyed it. I think I unhauled this one just because it's probably better for a younger reader to get their hands on. Another local New Jersey indie author, but unfortunately one that I haven't read, is The Carousel Carver by Perdita Buchan. This is another indie book set at the Jersey Shore. I don't know what it's about, but I assume it has something to do with the carousel, and I think it might have something to do with Asbury Park or one of my very local towns, which is exciting. This is still on my TBR, but unread. The next book is The Deeper the Water, the Uglier the Fish by Katya Apecker or something. Unfortunately, I'm covering up the names in a lot of these or I'm not saying them. And this book is unread. I saw CJ Reads read this one, and I picked it up at one of my favorite local used bookstores, but I have not read it. So it is on the TBR, but still unread. The next book is read. It is A Year Without a Name by Cyrus Grace Dunham. I first heard about this book on Bob's Booker's channel, and I was so happy to find it at a local library book sale, and I have read it. I really, really like this one. It is a memoir of Cyrus Grace Dunham's sexuality and their life and their gender identity and their depression and their obsessive behavior, OCD behaviors, and it was really, really interesting. It's super short. This is one that I think about like almost every day. There's parts of this that I think about all the time. It's very short, and I would definitely suggest picking it up to read from a perspective of someone who is non-binary, not one of the binary genders, a non-cis person, because you're very much in Dunham's head and you're very much learning about their experience from their experience, which is so interesting, but it has so many trigger warnings. Lots of trigger warnings, eating disorders, essay, lots of different things, self-harm, suicidal ideation. So it's also a very hard read. So I would definitely check trigger warnings, make sure that it's good for you to read. But if you can read it, I would definitely read it. The next book is unread. It's still on the TBR. It is I Am Madam X by Gloria Di Liberto. This is a fictional work about the John Singer Sargent painting of Madam X. That's my all-time favorite painting. I think my all-time favorite painting ever. So if I ever see any books that look like that or sound like that or are about that, I pick them up. But this one is unread. Most of them are still unread, but this one is unread on my TBR. The next book is unread. It is Mary Riley by Valerie Martin, which is a retelling, reimagining of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's maid's perspective. I think I've seen the movie, which had Julia Roberts in it, a long time ago, but I really don't remember it at all. And I've been holding on to this one, waiting, because I want to reread Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and then read this one at the same time. So it's unread. The next book is unread. It is Excellent Women by Barbara Pym. I've heard a couple of booktubers talk about Barbara Pym. She was a British author, and I'm excited to read her work, but I have not read any of it yet. The next book is read. I read it this year. It is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amel El Motar. This is a futuristic, post-apocalyptic love story of two secret agents, and it is one that I held off reading for such a long time because there was so much hype about it, and I was so excited to read it, and I was worried that it wouldn't stand up to the hype, but I think it absolutely does stand up to the hype. And I think if you like sci-fi, if you like love stories, if you like secret agents, you would like this book, as long as you're okay with being thrown into a world that you have to decipher throughout the book. I think one of the reasons that people don't love this book is because you have to figure it out as you go. But I love books like that, and I loved this book. The next book is The Pisces by Melissa Broder. This is unread. I'm interested in this one. Melissa Broder, I don't think, is the author for me, and that's one of the reasons that I haven't read The Pisces, but I am interested in this particular book of hers. I am not interested in Milkfed. Her latest book, I can't remember the name of. I'm not really interested in that one, but The Pisces is about a woman who falls in love with a fish, so I am interested in that, but I haven't gotten to it yet. The last book is The Journals of Beatrix Potter, which Beatrix Potter is a children's author and illustrator, and I love her work, most famous for Peter Rabbit and the books revolving around Peter Rabbit. I have not read this one. I think her journals were in code, or at least partly in code, and it had to be deciphered, but this one seems really, really interesting, and I would like to read this nonfiction eventually, but I haven't read it yet. Not as bad as the last two book hauls. I did read 16 of the books that we hauled here, but 23 of the books are unread and still on my TBR. 3 books are in the basement. 2 books were DNF, but I didn't unhaul any of them. and 2 books went on my collection. So how many is that total? 46 books total, which is less than last month. So we had 54 books total last month. But I did a lot better, at least. I did read 16 of these books. So let me know if you've read any of the books that I mentioned here. Let me know what you thought of them. I only put 1 book on my priority read list, which is The Story of a Long Distance Marriage. Let me know if any of my books that are unread but are still in my TBR I should prioritize. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!